Hey, I'm in Berlin. Today I'm going to discuss my initial thoughts on what it's like to live in Germany, especially when compared to the US. I'm not so much going to talk about the various things I saw, like monuments or exhibits, that would comprise a normal vacation video. Those types of videos will come later. Alright, now, before I get too much into it, I do want to quickly talk about my premiere, or at least whatever you want to call the continuation of the Season 7 finale. It is, of course, not done, which I guess is fairly standard for all my videos, but I am working on it. I can't, or at least won't, give a specific or even general time frame as to when I will get it done, but do know that I am working on it, and I will get it uploaded at some point. A natural place to start, I suppose, would be my initial estimations before I came to Germany. Starting with concerns, none of them have happened. I haven't been pickpocketed. I mean, it has only been a week, and I can't say for sure whether this ever will happen until I get back to the United States, but I have traveled on the metro by myself at 10 p.m. in the city center, or no, not the city center specifically, but fairly crowded parts of the city, and that went perfectly fine. So I imagine as long as I stay a little guarded, this won't be an issue. Everyone here seems to speak English. In fact, there's only been one time where someone didn't speak English, and it mattered. And even then, that was resolved really easily, so my less German has been a non-issue. Alcohol also hasn't been a problem. I've only been offered it twice by my host family, both of which times no, just worked perfectly fine. I don't know if they know that I don't drink alcohol, but irregardless, it doesn't seem to be a problem. As for excitements, it's a little too early to say for most of them. I've only been here a week, so I haven't had a chance to learn German. I am remembering some of my German, but I by no means know the language. Also, this first week has only been orientation, so I haven't had any classes, so I don't know if this will in fact be an easier semester. Some people in charge have said, or at least indicated, that this is going to be a tough semester, but it's 13.2 credits at Iowa State. And if it is truly 13.2 credits, I won't have an issue. As for exploring Germany, that's currently in process. I've only seen parts of Berlin, the rest of Germany will come later, but what I have seen so far has been pretty interesting. I'm not really going to get into it, because again, that's not really the point of this video. As for my homestay family, my initial assessment appears to be correct. They are in fact pretty cool people. I haven't necessarily spent a lot of time with them, mostly only during meals. Part of that being that everything is new and unfamiliar, and so it's taking some time to adjust. The other part being that I'm just naturally a private person and would spend most of my time by myself anyways. That being said, they are definitely very nice and generous people. They took me shopping and let me pick out some items. They've given me my own room, a large room, actually larger than my room back home. They also seem to be pretty understanding. They've had a homestay student before me last semester, so they kind of know the process. And while it can be a little hard to tell, they don't seem to mind that I spend most of my time alone. Having just finished talking about my host family, a couple things come to mind that are odd. Not so much about my family, but about their way of living, I guess. First off, beds, just quilts. No sheets or anything, just the quilt. Now, I would think this is an idiosyncrasy of the family, but I stayed in a hotel the first couple of nights, and that was also just quilts. I mean, it's fine, the quilt is warm enough, but I just find it kind of odd. Another thing, confirmed by both the hotel and the homestay, is showers, no doors, or even curtains. Like here, there's just a lip to prevent the water from flooding the bathroom. And, I mean, that works for the most part. It doesn't stop a spray from the shower head as much, though. But it just feels very not private. Like, I know only one person would use the shower at a time anyways, but still, without the curtain, it feels very open. Another odd thing out here is they don't have dryers. Now I've been told this, and so far I can confirm that. Just no dryers here. They hang dry all their stuff instead. I've also been told that energy is much more expensive here, so I guess to them, dryers seem like a waste of money, but as an American, where energy is apparently relatively cheap, dryers just make sense. Provided you have a good dryer, you can get stuff dry in like an hour, as opposed to, I don't know, 5 hours, depending on what you're hang drying. Another thing that's really common among Germans is carbonated water, and quite frankly, I don't get it. I've had some, and it tastes bitter. I don't understand it. I mean, they will take tap water, and they have a device that will add CO2 to the water, and it's like, why? I mean, I don't mind the carbonation, like, I like soda, but the CO2 adds, like, a bitter flavor to it. I don't get it. I don't know why they would do this. But speaking of drinks, I find the reaction to alcohol interesting. Not so much among the Germans, they seem to have that under control, but among my fellow study abroad students, they all seem really keen on drinking. Which, I mean, I guess the college students, I shouldn't be surprised, but, like, they all seem to have, or at least most, seem to have the understanding that, oh yeah, no, we'll go out, and we'll drink a bunch, and we'll do that as often as possible. I mean, like, why wouldn't you drink? And, I mean, I guess it's fine, they're allowed to drink, like, it doesn't really affect me, but some of them seem to have an obsession with it. Like, half the reason they came to Germany was so they could drink. Switching topics a bit, I'm rather enjoying the public transportation here in Berlin. They've actually got a lot of it. They've got the U-Bahn and the S-Bahn, the U-Bahn being more like a subway and the S-Bahn being more like a commuter rail, although the S-Bahn will at points go underground and the U-Bahn will at points go above ground, so I don't really know why they bother distinguishing between the two. But anyways, they've also got buses, and then in the eastern part of the city they've got trams. So it's a very thorough and extensive network. In some ways, almost too extensive, so Google Maps has definitely been very helpful in navigating it. But it's all been very nice, and as a student, I get free access to all of it, so it's just a very convenient way of pretty much going wherever I want in the city. Speaking of the city, there's actually a lot of history to it. I mean, this isn't a surprise. Berlin was founded before the United States even existed, but still, they've got stuff from, I think, the Middle Ages with the Brandenburg Gate, palaces and cathedrals from the 1800s and the 1900s, old Nazi government buildings, which have of course been repurposed, and then like a bunch of Cold War era Soviet-style apartments. There's also a bunch of new construction going on, like large chunks of the city are being rebuilt. Not so much due to World War II, that was 70 years ago at this point, but they're more like taking down, or at least refurbishing, a bunch of Cold War buildings. All of these new structures and general modern technology, combined with these much older structures, creates an interesting contrast. What you could call, I guess, an old new. Like, for example, you'll have this eco-friendly glass dome on top of an 1800s congressional building, or like an electric car being driven on a cobblestone street, or an advertisement for Samsung right across from a 1900s cathedral. It creates an interesting contrast throughout the city, just kind of indicating the city's still very old and there's a lot of history to it, but it's somehow also new and modern. I'm actually going to switch gears again, because so far I've been talking a lot about the differences between Germany and the US, but there are also a notable amount of similarities. Like, for example, the grocery stores. I walked into one, and I was actually a little surprised at how similar it was to ones in the US. I mean, I guess I don't know what I was expecting, but I still noted that it was just as stocked as American ones. Another example is their government buildings, which all have pretty much the same design as US ones. Which, again, if you kind of think about it, makes sense. I mean, they're all based off of Greek architecture, but I still like, oh, these are all very familiar. And, I mean, I guess there's kind of a lot of examples like that. There are other similarities that I'm, of course, just skipping over because I'm probably not even noticing them. But it's still always kind of like, oh, I didn't expect that to be the same. But if you really think about it, it's like, I guess, but why wouldn't it be the same? Actually, more prevalent than direct similarities are things that are almost the same. Like, for example, the toilets. They at least seem the same, but they use a button to flush instead of a lever. Or their outlets. I mean, they may look all different, but as long as you have the proper adapter, they work the same. Or light switches. They, of course, function the same, but they have a pad instead of a little nub. And in fact, this applies to many things I called differences as well. Like the showers. Most of the shower is the same. It's just they don't have a door or a curtain. The clothes washing process. That is, again, mostly the same. They just hang dry instead of tumble dry. Or beds. I mean, it's still a wood slab, a mattress, a pillow, and a quilt. They just don't have sheets. And I mean, this can also be seen with their language. Like, a lot of it is very similar to English, but there are still definite differences. And I feel like everything here, or at least most things here, are like 80 to 90% the same. But there's still that like 10 to 20% difference that makes everything feel different. Yeah, these are some of my thoughts on Germany. Now, there are, of course, other examples to things I've mentioned, and probably whole other ideas that I've just skipped over because I didn't think of them. But this is what I've noted, at least so far. And overall, it does seem like definitely a very interesting country. Nevertheless, hope you enjoyed it, and see ya.